And that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. What a freaking year. 2023 had the single most amount of movies I watched in a year. Sure, I'm writing this intro and legit all of the worst of 2023 before I've seen 3 movies, but once I've watched those movies, well, let's start with bragging about my 2022 ranking. I bragged that I had watched 51 movies within the year. Rookie numbers, man. Because as of December 31st, 2023, I have watched 157 movies. That's right, and we're taking a look at all of them. Well, kinda, I'll explain in a bit. But because that's 157 movies and I just don't want to waste your guys' time, especially with movies I may have already talked about on the channel, I'll just go over a few of these entries real quick, maybe with some stuff I didn't mention before, and I'll also be doing quick fires in certain areas. This will also be a two-parter, with 157 through 101 being talked about in today's video, while the top 100 will be another video at a later date. Rail across the Spider-Verse type shit. With that, specific rankings such as the best and ultimately worst of the year will be discussed in some detail. With that, enough stalling. We've got 157 movies to get to. Let me ask you something. If you watched 157 movies within 1 year, what could you call the worst? Last year, of the 51 movies I watched, I called The Bubble the worst. But to be fair, that was 51 movies. This is 106 more than that. So with that, what was my worst film of 2023? Was it Knights of the Zodiac? No. Was it 65? Nah. Was it Exorcist Believer? Worse than that. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot make this movie up. It somehow is worse than the worst of 2022 and probably the worst of 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, the worst movie of 2023 in my opinion was Bezos. A biopic talking about Jeff Bezos. Well, that actually sounds really good. It tells the deep, dark story of a businessman torn between his morals as he starts up what he didn't realize would be a monster of a business. Family will be cut out, morals will be tested, and ultimately, Jeff Bezos' story will be told. Except none of that happens, and the film is incredibly insultingly boring. Jeff Bezos is already not a good topic for a biopic. I'm sorry to say, he had a lucky business that made him a billionaire. That's not interesting, and neither is this film. This film is an hour and a half of chronicling the most awkward entrepreneur in the world, on a platform owned by Amazon. Did I mention this movie came out on Freevee? Yeah, sure, you could rent it on Prime Video too. See the problem? The Bubble was at least just bad commentary. This is bad commentary, and it's also incredibly insulting. No creativity, no liberties were taking. It is an insulting film. It has nothing, and I mean nothing of value. All 156 other films on this list have some value. This doesn't. It's bad. Don't watch it. Of these 157 films, I only gave 4 of them a half star out of 5 on Letterboxd. The bottom 2 of these half stars are films that really just don't work, while the top 2 really just fall into the same category of not my style. With that, at number 156 is Rebel Moon Part 1. I was insanely disappointed in this movie. Zack Snyder pretty much said, I can't do Star Wars, but I can rip it off. Great job, you put lightsabers. That's lightsabers! This movie makes me angry because, unlike Bezos, at least there are a few creative liberties taken. I think many chose to forget how good of a director Zack Snyder can be, but other problems often hold him back. For this film, visually, it's nothing new. You can see these visuals in a Star Wars, hell, even a Star Trek film. Nothing new is added with these visuals. Every time Charlie Hunnam is in a movie, I find myself incredibly bored by him, and unfortunately, he keeps that same charm with him here, as he just has no chemistry with any of the other characters. Speaking of the other characters, Sofia Boutella's character is the only one I kinda remember. She actually plays the part pretty well. But this movie has Djimon Hounsou, and somehow they made him boring too. Story, it's a mess, jumbled and completely spent after the first hour. For a 2-hour and 15-minute movie, that's a problem. The audacity this film has to be a two-parter. You ain't Spider-Verse, bitch. With that, the main character does make up for what is otherwise just another Zack Snyder flop. I can't recommend this one.
You smell good.
Did I not before?
You smell good.
Did I not before?
You smell good.
Did I not before?
You smell good. Did I not before?
Alright, let's do a quick fire on this one because both of these movies have a similar issue. In list order, we have After Everything at 155 and Genie at 154. The last 2 of my half stars, and truly, I do think it's saying something that they're above a pointless jumbled sci-fi and a pointless lacking biopic, because neither of these films fall into that me category. But I watched them, so they're on the list. After Everything is the 5th in a franchise I associate with a love story worse than Twilight, which is crazy. This movie never had charm, no matter what. It was just 2 characters wanting to fuck. That was it. Genie is a bit better, but not by much. Blood and Honey is exactly the reason why the public domain was a mistake. Because people make fucked up shit like this. A Winnie the Pooh horror movie? Well, sign me and the Banana Splits movie up for a bad time because man is this movie bad. It's just a bad Friday the 13th sequel with a bad Winnie the Pooh mask instead of Jason. The fact that this is getting a sequel in 2024 and we don't have an Over the Hedge 2 is proof humanity is just losing it. I want to see the raccoon and the skunk fuck, is that so hard? What should have been a statement for the public domain further proved the problems that arise when certain properties enter that domain. See, Mouse, an upcoming shooter based on Steamboat Willie, actually looks pretty good and shows how you can handle public domain without going overboard with it. Blood and Honey went overboard? Seriously, this movie sucks.
I can give it a nickel if it wants.
Love Again is just not a good movie, but I will be quick with it because it's kind of like After Everything and Genie, it just falls out of my demographic. With that, Love Again is cheesy, with hokey acting, a predictable story, and god-awful jokes. What keeps this so close to the bottom, though, is Priyanka Chopra Jonas's performance. I'm not even a hater of her, I just do not like her performance in this, and the guy, Sam Hugan, is about as bad. But hey, at least Priyanka had Citadel. She sure did. So, a rom-com where the couple can't be romantic to save their lives? Count me out. The Expendables 4, or the, Exportable, I'm not giving them the satisfaction, is a stupid, obnoxious, even downright horrendous film that often feels like keys being waved in front of you rather than a coherent action film. But what can I say? Most of these action films feel like this already. Hell, most of Jason Statham's filmography is like this. The Beekeeper looks stupid, yes it does. But what about the first Expendables? That was a good movie. So was the first Hangover, and you don't see people praising the third one. This is a franchise long overdue for retirement. I argue the second one was a good place to stop, while the third and definitely the fourth films are not worth your time. Freelance is a stupid action movie, but what puts it above Expendables 4 just a little bit is that John Cena and Alison Brie actually have somewhat chemistry. The jokes are so one-note, like Cena's character's last name is Petites. Okay, so you think they'll go into deep jokes about his past? Nope, they just make petite jokes. Oh, you have such a petite dick, Petites, shut up. The whole film feels like they wanted to do a Just Cause movie, but didn't have the rights, so we just see John Cena flexing his muscles. I'm sure someone gets turned on to that, but for the rest of us, it's a confusing and sometimes even unfun mess. Freelance is just bad. It's peak bad filmmaking. White Men Can't Jump, but wait a minute. Jack Harlow? What are you doing here? With your little dicky head ass. Want to be Carrot Top so bad. Trying to be Dream.
That's what the mask is!
White Men Can't Jump is of course a remake of the film from the 90s starring Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes. Where the first film had a nice indie edge to it, Jack Harlow being here takes any edge out of this movie away. He has practically nothing to work off of with Cinco Walls. The film is also incredibly unfunny. Like, I laughed once and it was a light chuckle. This film is one of the worst comedies of the year, no doubt. And when it tries to be a deep and serious, Jack Harlow, get the fuck out of here. Oh, and this is one of the last films with Lance Reddick in it before he died. Jack Harlow! Charlie Day is easily one of my favorite things to come out of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So imagine my disappointment when I watched Fool's Paradise and it sucked. It's like none of Charlie Day's charm was present here. He tried to do Charlie Chaplin type stuff in 2023 and it comes off as so awkward. The biggest cuck move this movie makes is that Charlie Day doesn't talk. Have you ever watched It's Always Sunny? His whole shtick is yelling. They even play with that in the beginning with an actor who looks like Charlie Day's main character, and he's played by Charlie Day, and I was thinking, oh, what if it was about this guy? Not the mute who gets dumped by the mental hospital, this guy, showcasing Charlie Day's talent that he showed in It's Always Sunny. But no, he goes Charlie Chaplin on us, and he clearly doesn't know how to do that. The whole film just doesn't work for me. It comes off as both completely unfunny and incredibly awkward. End of story. Do better, Charlie Day. The Black Demon. I saw the trailer for Family Switch and really said, oh, it's Freaky Friday with 2 extra people. That is how immediate my dismissal of this movie was. I knew it was going to be awful, and with that said, it wasn't nearly as bad as some of the other worst, but I still don't think that says much. For what it's worth, it had way more laughs than Fool's Paradise or White Men Can't Jump. Ed Helms carries most of the film, but here's the thing. Helms is not a comedic actor who can carry a film. That's why The Hangover works and Coffee and Kareem doesn't. What the fuck is a Coffee and Kareem? He needs the right people to work off of, and I only saw that occasionally with Brady Noon in this movie. Family Switch is as lazy comedies get. House Party. Oh, a new Netflix action movie starring Gal Gadot? Well, I have Netflix, and as movies as Rebel Moon have shown, they always put out quality. When does it come out? This coming Friday? I just watched the trailer. Oh wait, it has Gal Gadot in it? Pass. I will say, The Exorcist Believer is probably next to Fool's Paradise and the most angry I've gotten watching a movie this year. Because on the surface, this should work. It pushes the franchise in a new direction. Kinda. And it seems scary enough. The trailers were pretty damn scary. There's only one problem. The film isn't scary. Y'all know why the first Exorcist worked, right? Because it was scary. It was a real kind of horror movie. Now it's just a big joke to the people who made it. It is insane to me this is the director behind the 2018 Halloween film. That was a good-ass horror movie. I didn't like this one, but the makeup alongside the acting from the girls was actually pretty good. Otherwise, rare highlights in an awful horror movie. It pretty much tied with Blood and Honey for the worst horror of 2023. I have really nothing new to say about Ghosted, other than it's cheap, generic, and without any real energy this movie really needed to have. It's proof that most streaming services feel they don't need to put effort into a movie as long as big names are attached to it. It's just not very good. Chris Evans and Ana de Armas, despite having the same chemistry I mentioned so much in Knives Out, have nothing in this. It's bland, it's lazy, and with a bad script, bad acting, and despite all this, a decent idea. Chris Evans' acting was hideous in this. I don't know if it was just bad directing, which is even more insulting considering Dexter Fletcher, the director behind Rocketman and Eddie the Eagle, was behind this, but the only real highlight is Ana de Armas. She is decent, otherwise, nothing. I can't really say anything about this one. Magic Mike's Last Dance. Slaughterhouse is stupid. I have nothing to say about this one. It is dumb. It weirdly isn't like other horror movies that seem dumb but put out a decent product. No, it's dumb and I didn't like it. The acting is pretty hokey, but I guess there's an occasional good scare. It didn't scare me, but my buddy I watched it with did get a few scares. Overall, it's not a good movie, but I guess it is a bit less insulting than Blood and Honey or Exorcist Believer. Quasi, moving on. Simulant, moving on. Your place Jesus, where's the good stuff? About My Father is a reminder that no matter what else Robert De Niro does, he did Dirty Grandpa. I get he needs a paycheck, but he is still one of the most influential performers of all Hollywood. And yet he continues to do these movies that are so below his talent. War with Grandpa, Dirty Grandpa, Uncle Grandpa.
I've had it up to here!
And Sebastian Maniscalco, is he funny? Because I can't tell with this movie. He is incredibly annoying in this. Actually, more often than not, I would just say to myself, he sounds a lot like Adam Sandler. That's weird. Overall, I've talked about it before. It's not good. It's annoying, so yeah. The Outlaws. Vacation Friends 2 kind of sucks because I liked the first film. And ultimately, that's the problem. The first film was fine without a sequel, because this is an incredibly unfunny sequel. It's got like 10% good jokes with 90% bad ones. I don't know, any chemistry John Cena and Lil Rel Howery had in the first film is void in this film. The only thing I kinda say is Steve Buscemi is actually really funny in this.
But this year... Hey, where are you going?
I'm going to the Elton John party.
What the hell?
My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3 has to be the most unnecessary sequel I have ever watched. Almost as much as My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2, but I will say, it's not as terrible or god-awful as I thought it would be. It's still bad with a lot of the tropey stupidity that I know these movies for. I don't know, it had some funny lines, and what's always been good about these movies was the family dynamic. It just kind of sucks that, it's My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. Those 5 words and 1 number combined should be all the proof you need to know it's awful. My grandma liked it. Oh god, moving on. 65 is kind of in the same boat as Ghosted, where the concept's cool, but it comes off as kind of lazy and just not a good movie in the slightest. Adam Driver's cool and all, but it just felt like Tom Cruise's War of the Worlds with Jurassic Park and Alien. It felt like no new ideas were presented. Adam Driver's performance is the only thing keeping this one from being lower.
Can you kill those people? Like Santa!
I mentioned in my Wish video that there was only one animated movie that was worse than Wish that I had watched. And honestly, I shouldn't have hyped it as much as I did because it's a movie I'm pretty sure no one's even heard of, let alone knowing its existence. This movie is Rock Dog 3 Battle the Beat. It's actually insane how comically bad this movie is. I mean, not that I had expectations for Rock Dog 3, it ended up being an insanely unfun film because it's just so predictable. Like, Bodhi has this message that is gonna come back and bite him in the butt. And that's not just because he's a dog, a rock dog. I'm not giving y'all the satisfaction. But the way it comes back is just so mean and unnecessary. The film is just not good, but it's Rock Dog 3. Were you expecting a masterpiece? It's freaking Spy Kids again. The Nun 2 is a film I kinda knew I wasn't gonna like. The trailer was scary, but as Exorcist Believer proved, it can be a scary trailer for an unscary film. And that's kinda what happens. The Nun 2 proves to be a completely derivative and dull experience, with very few scares and just no idea on how to continue the story. The only thing keeping it above Believer is, it did have one good scare, whereas Believer was just really uncomfortable. Knights of the Zodiac, moving on. Meg 2 is a sequel I kinda knew wasn't gonna work, but it's actually more funny on how much it doesn't work. It's pretty bad, with the shark losing its appeal after about 45 minutes in, and ooh, Jason Statham acting as a cool badass. You know, if it works for him, give him a January release. I've discussed it before, so I'll keep this list going. I just really didn't like this one. The Pope's Exorcist was a pretty cool idea with once again kind of botched execution. Russell Crowe gives probably my least favorite performance from him, and he was Zeus, man. It's also got that thing where it's not scary, so what's the point? You really will get more of a scare of a modern Scream movie, which, yeah, we'll get to when we get to. You people. The last of the bad tier, it's 80 for Brady. It went from one of the worst movies of 2023 for a bit to the best of the bad stuff. Again, it's not my thing, but I get why people didn't like it. It was boring, completely serene, and just kind of lame. I do realize that now it's at the top of the bad tier because it is tame, unlike some of the stuff at the bottom. But as is, it's not like being the top of the bad tier doesn't make you bad. It just makes you slightly tolerable. Pain Hustlers, Big George Foreman, What Happens Later, Old Dads, On a Wing and a Prayer. Owen Wilson is either the funniest guy around or the absolute bane of comedy, and Paint showcases the latter. It feels like it's trying to tell the story and bring its justice, but man, Owen Wilson was just the wrong casting. I'm sure this would have worked if it had a better lead in the driver's seat, but no, this is wrong. Wow. Wish is an embarrassingly mediocre performance that celebrates 100 years of one of the biggest names in animation. With all that said, I already talked about it just last month, so check that out for more details. Peter Pan and Wendy is boring. I didn't really find much to enjoy, but I can't say I hated it, which sucks because at least with remakes like Mulan and Beauty and the Beast, there are things I do hate about those movies. This is just kind of bland and forgettable. With that, nothing immediately awful about it, so it's got that going for it. So DC had a pretty rough year this year, and I'm unfortunate to tell you I've watched all of their movies from 2023 and I only liked one. We'll get to what that one is in the next video, but for me, the worst one was The Flash. I have a review of this one and I also talked about it in my last video, so go check those out for more details, but God, this one sucks. It's got a mixture of bad and good CG, but the story is just so jumbled and confused. They just repeat General Zod for some reason. I couldn't like this one. They had good intentions clearly, but it came off as just kind of rough, especially considering the lead, who, do I need to say it?
Why is this an exciting project?
You know.
Groom, I want you in my room, but only you.
It's just bad, and clearly it was a rough film to market with Miller in the lead. With that, judging just off of his performance and not him as a person, Ezra Miller is actually pretty good in the performance. And Michael Keaton as Batman was just a given. Bad Guy's a very bad holiday. The only right thing in that title is bad. The animation is choppy, admittedly that might be from a cut budget. It doesn't have nearly the same charm as the movie, but it is short, only a little over 20 minutes, so I guess I can forgive it. What do they do to my boy Piranha? Insidious 5. Hey, wanna pretend we fuck? That's the plot of Anyone But You. A pretty rough around the edges comedy that has some good humor, but it doesn't match up to what is a pretty lame comedy. The unironic chemistry between Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney is actually kind of funny considering the plot, but other than that, Anyone But You is nothing special. Bird Box 2. The Pale Blue Eye. Man, I was rooting for Indiana Jones 5. I was really praying it wasn't going to be mid. And while it's better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, well, that's not really saying much. It's boring, drags out a lot, and do you find 81-year-old Harrison Ford doing stunts and getting hurt amusing? Because I don't. I mean, if I wanted to laugh at elders, I'd go to my local Kroger store. But I don't want to watch this for that joy. Dial of Destiny is just boring and has nothing special going on. How funny is it that there were two Dracula adaptations and somehow the better of those two was the one with Nicolas Cage's Dracula? The Last Voyage of the Demeter was, well, kind of like the rest of the mid-tier, completely and utterly boring. It got glimpses of good Dracula moments, but the rest is just kind of okay. Like, I'm not angry I watched it, but I was bored by it. Fast frickin' X. I am so angry this one wasn't all that bad. Jason Momoa kinda sucked as a villain, but this series was never known for especially deep characters. It's just someone who got screwed over by the crew and wants revenge on
Dominic Toretto.
It's over the top and obnoxious, but not nearly as much as the other bad Fast movies, which, spoilers, there's a lot of those. Boston Strangler. The Boogeyman was a pretty cool concept from director Rob Savage. They made sure to let us know this was from the legendary Rob Savage. Well, there's something wrong with that sentence. Oh yeah, who the fuck is Rob Savage? They really advertised this like it was a Steven Spielberg joint. How the hell are we supposed to be hyped for a movie from a director we've never heard of? The Boogeyman offers very little for a horror movie, but I guess David Dastmalchian is okay. In third place of the not-so-close-at-all DC 2023 race, it's Shazam! Fury of the Gods, a pretty useless sequel with occasionally good bits. I do think the fun nature of this film keeps it above The Flash, but the rest of the film is about what you expect. Lame jokes, botched villains, which is weirdly a trend in these 2023 DC films. I've discussed it to death. I used to like it a lot now, and now it's just kinda lame. Murder Mystery 2 is the sequel to a movie I'm pretty sure even Sandler fans forgot existed. I will say, this is an occasion where the sequel doesn't outweigh the first film. I definitely enjoyed the first film better than this one. I feel there was just better jokes in that one. This one, I can't pick out a single one that stuck with me. Admittedly, I'd watched this in May and I haven't even watched it again since, but I at least remember a few jokes from even Sandler's worst comedies. They're not great jokes, but they stick. This one just kinda exists and it does okay at that, I guess. Book Club 2. Infinity Pool is one of the many films on this list that have split thoughts on them, with some really liking it and others, well, some liked it at least. I initially liked it upon rewatch, but I couldn't do it. It was lame the second time around. Not bad by any means, just lame. I discussed it in my March video, so there's more on it there, but Infinity Pool is either one of your new favorites or new least favorites, and there seems to be no in between. I found that in between. Fuck you.
Fortnite.